Hey guys, and welcome back to another week of us doing Revolution Online. This is our social distance version of Revolution because obviously we can't be together during this time. I hope everyone is happy, healthy, and safe. I hope people are enjoying their time with their families and enjoying this time being at home. I want to know how everyone's doing with school and work. How do you guys feel about working from home, and how do you guys feel about being locked in a house with your family 24/7? I know I'm going a little bit insane. I'm currently sitting in a car in my garage trying to film this video because everybody else is going through school and work right now also. So I want to know how everyone's doing specifically. Tonight we are doing worship with Kyle, like always, and then we're doing a discussion on influence with Taylor, Chris, Marissa, and a very special guest tonight from Kelvin. I hope you guys enjoy the service, and I will be here at the end to close you guys out. I'll see you guys later.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, a name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes and wonder, and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart, and lead me in your love to those around me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes and wonder, and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart, and lead me in your love to those around me. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken, and I will build my life
Well, hey Revolution, Taylor here, and tonight we're excited because we're going to do something a little different. Instead of me standing up, and I know you don't want to hear from me anymore, I have some friends with me, and we are excited to do a Zoom lesson, if you will, have a little discussion. So I have first the lovely Marissa here with me. Marissa, say hello, say hi to the people.
Hi, my friends. I hope you guys are well and healthy and living your best inside life. I don't know what that means. Kind of just.
When you figure out what that means, let me know.
I think it's like fluid. Like everybody can have their own definition of what their best inside life means. For me, it means Animal Crossing all the time.
I think that's what it means for a lot of people, actually.
And I can't really do anything else. That's just it.
That's living the dream right there.
That's true.
So we have Marissa here. We also have the incredible Chris Fraley here. Chris, say hello to the people. How are you? With your amazing glasses on too, I have to say I love your styling today, Chris. Honestly,
I'm glad to be here. My Bluetooth just kicked back on, so yeah, it's going in and out. So my microphone may be working, it may not be working, but this is new to us all. So
I can hear you now, if that helps.
That's good. Yeah, I was on another screen trying to get this thing to connect, and finally here I am.
There you are. Well, we're so glad.
Yes.
To have you today. And then
I'm glad to be here.
Our third guest too. This is a fun one. We have the man, Kelvin Gavin, with us. Kelvin, say hi to everyone.
What's up, everybody? Miss you guys. Hope to see you soon. Yeah, just be safe.
Well, hey, thank you all for joining me. I'm excited. Today's gonna be a little different. We're gonna have time to really do more discussion than like teaching stuff. So to kick us off, we're actually starting a new series that we're gonna do over the next few weeks, and I think we're gonna do a lot of these talks like in this kind of format with different people. But one of the things I want to talk about is I'm amazed at the rise of the influencer that is just like taken over these past, I would say like 4 or 5 years. Now, if you don't know what an influencer is, it is someone who is very popular online, or Marissa Crawford. Marissa is also an influencer, but it's someone who's very popular online, and they are basically paid to help influence others towards something or away from something. Now, to some of you, this might not be weird. To some of you, it might be kind of weird, like it is a little weird to me. And it's amazing. And what it's reminded me of is the power of influence. And so we wanted to take a few weeks to talk about this. And this series is called The You Effect. Like you, like Y-O-U. Like point to yourself right now, wherever you're listening at. Like the You Effect. And we're going to talk about this idea of really reframing what influence looks like. So I have a question to kick us off for the three of you. And y'all can go in any order and sort of just chime in. What do you think of when you hear the word influence? What comes to mind?
When I think of the word influence, I think of like crazy, like 16-year-old YouTubers, like Jake Paul and all the, like Tana, whoever all of these people are. Do you know who these people are, Taylor Brown? Have you ever heard of Tana?
Tana who?
Did you? Oh my gosh!
Tana,
you go to
Tana what?
Did you go to TanaCon?
What is that? I don't know.
I don't know, dude.
I know Jake Paul. Is that Logan Paul?
Jake Paul and Logan Paul. They're brothers.
Okay, I know Logan.
And then James Charles. And
sounds like a musician. I don't know.
James Charles does sound like a musician. It would be a good musician name.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I think of. I think of all of these YouTubers that are making dollar bills, y'all. When they're like babies. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Chris, Kelvin, what about you? What do you think of when you hear the word influence?
Someone that I can connect to relationally. And depending on where I'm at mentally as well as in my heart, me actually really tuning in, really listening to what it is they have to say. And lately, as you can see, there's a lot of positive influence, but you also have these pockets of negative influence right now. But influence to me, especially today, just it just really speaks to what is my heart feeling? What is my head feeling? Where am I at? And who am I able to connect with? Mm-hmm. And the words that they have, are they being uplifting to me? Because right now, the last thing that we need is to go into a negative rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, that's good, especially thinking about like you said, influence in today's sort of where we're at today, sitting here, quarantined, being in our homes. I think you're absolutely right. Kelvin, what about you? When you hear the word influence, what do you think of?
Um, well, one of the first things that I think of was, like Marissa said, like big influencers, like music artists, and all these different types of people. And the second thing that I think of, which is probably the one that has the most effect on me, would probably be parents. I always think of parents because, and I remember um, just getting bored and looking through like some psychology stuff and just seeing like, how the way your parents acted towards you when you were little, if your parents weren't there, if they were there too much, and just the effect of how your household was when you were little. That can actually influence a lot of the decisions you make, not even consciously. So that's probably what I think of when I think of influence.
Yeah, totally. I love that Kelvin, I love that you said parents, because to me, that speaks to like when it comes to influence, you almost think of like the power of influence that some can have on others. And I think, for me, when I think of influence, I think almost how there's two extremes to it, and not so much what Chris was saying, not so much good or bad. That's true as well. But for me, I think of almost like we either realize that we have a ton of influence, or we think that we have zero influence. And I'd be willing to bet that a lot of us, we're more on the zero influence end, or very minimal influence. Like we think we might be able to influence, a couple people or our friend group, or people here and there, but we think, really, how impactful can I be? Like you might be thinking, I'm only a middle schooler, I'm only a high schooler, or I'm just this, or I'm just that, or I haven't reached this goal yet. And once I reach this goal or this certain status, then I'll be able to be someone who has influence. But I think one thing that I want us to hear today, and I want us to talk a little bit about this, is that every single one of us have influence. Every single person in this call, every single person listening, every single person hearing this has influence. No matter if you're a middle or high schooler or wherever you are, every single person has influence. And so I wonder, could you all just take a second and each share of how does it make you feel? And maybe for you, this is like something you're still discovering of how you have influence over others, or maybe for you, this is something that like you understand, that maybe you've had an experience where you get this now. But how does it make you feel knowing that you have influence over the lives of others? How does that make you feel? Does it freak you out? Does it make you anxious, nervous, excited, whatever? So Chris, I don't know if you want to kick us off and share with us, but how does that make you feel personally?
As far as it goes, wow, it's a heavy weight to carry. I mean, if you look at the broader picture of it, because not only is it that I know that I have influence, around the people that I interact with, but also the youth that I get to work with. So attitudes can be read very easily. Body language, the tone of voices, those can influence a room. And that's a really big thing. And then also, I love how Kelvin was talking about with parenting, the influence on parenting, because right now the influence in our house, especially for myself, this quarantine has kind of taken on a new meaning in the Fraley household. Tuesday, I came home to my wife being home sick, and she was tested yesterday and is showing symptoms. Today, I've become symptomatic and have had a fever, and I've got my teenage daughter Angelina, which a lot of you know, as well as my 8-year-old Sienna in the house. And the influence in how I'm reacting in these types of situations are they're affecting my daughters. My daughters are scared. So I have to be honest with them, but I also have to be real in the aspect of how I live my life, how I choose to live my life in following Christ. And we're praying together as a family. We're encouraging each other, and we're trying to remain positive, and that influence has a ripple effect, whether it's to younger generations or even to older generations. And it's hitting really powerfully right now in our home. Just as we're 2 days into this, so as we await results from Connie's test to
Yeah,
see how this is going to go.
yeah. Chris, thanks for inviting us into that too. I know that I know that we've been talking, the past couple of days about a lot of this stuff. And one, we're praying for you. And by the time this airs, we're going to know what the results are. And so that even that influence is going to look different too. But I think that's such a beautifully worded picture of what influence looks like, specifically in the midst of difficulty, and especially in the midst of unknown. And so thank you for that, just transparency too, to be able to share that with us, because I think that's so huge. Of there's times where influence is great and it's exciting, but there's times where influence is scary too. I think you captured that. Kelvin, what about you? What do you when you think about this idea that you have influence over the lives of others? How does that make you feel?
It kind of freaks me out, to be 100% honest. And being like a brother and having like very little siblings, just one thing you say can be repeated for the rest of their lives, or whatever. It feels like it'll be the rest of their lives. And, you slip up and you make mistakes, and then, it doesn't only reflect on you, it reflects on them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a huge responsibility. And I guess having influence, sometimes it makes me feel like I can make a much greater impact than I normally can. Seeing the influence that I can have on my little siblings. We've been getting into Minecraft a lot during this quarantine, and how all my little brothers are downstairs playing Minecraft. My 3-year-old brother knows how to play Minecraft now, which is like mind-boggling. Like, I taught him how to do that.
That's pretty awesome right there. I got to be honest. That's pretty cool.
I'm telling you, it's so crazy. He doesn't want to stop. He really doesn't want to stop. And then with my friends and stuff, seeing the way that people can come to me for questions, or I can go to them for questions, and just seeing how useful that can be for people is uplifting, probably.
Yeah, that's great. And we're gonna, today I want us to look at a story from about Jesus and his disciples and this large crowd. And I want us to think of this story through the lens of influence, because I think a lot of times when we hear this story, and Jesus does this incredible thing, and we're going to talk about that, but I don't think we often view this story in the lens of influence and who has influence in this story. So I want us to look at this. The story's in John 6. So if you're at home, if you want to pull the Bible app, if you have a Bible, go ahead and grab it. But the story is in John 6, and here's what you need to know before we dive in, some context. So in this story, it starts with Jesus and his closest followers, his closest friends. We call them his disciples. And when Jesus would travel to different places, he would go from town to town and place to place. Jesus was a really big deal back in these days. People knew his name, people knew who he was, and people often traveled to see him and be with him and to hear him. And so during this time, there were lots of crowds that would form around Jesus. You need to know that. It's important, because you might be like, why is there so many people here? What's going on? So I'm going to kick off this story. You'll be able to see it. It'll be on the screen that you're watching on, so you'll be able to see it. So I'm going to start reading now. This is from John chapter 6. It says, sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is the Sea of Tiberias. And a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover festival was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for all these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. So let's pause right here. Let's set the scene. So Jesus sees this large crowd forming, and he asks Philip, who's one of his closest friends, his disciples, what they should do. Philip, what should we do here? What are we going to do? Are we going to buy enough for people to eat? And so I love that it says Jesus was testing him, because I think that just cracks me up of that's who Jesus is. Jesus already knew what he wanted to do, but he just wanted to see what Philip's response would be. So check out what Philip says. It says this: Philip answered him, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." So stop and think about this. Imagine now, in the world of social distancing, we might have forgotten what a crowd is like. So just imagine that you're in a crowd, that you're at Disney, you're at a theme park, and imagine that all of a sudden, all these people at Disney turn to you to figure out what it is that they're supposed to eat for lunch or for dinner or whatever. So Philip is like, come on, like you want me to spring the bill for all of these people? That's crazy. I can't do that. So then check out what happens, because something unexpected happens next. It says, another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among so many? So then one of the disciples notices a boy. And this boy doesn't have a lot, right? He's got 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. So think about this. In a crowd of thousands, this is what their answer is, right? They find one boy who's willing to give up his lunch. Now, the cynical side of us might go, okay, that's great. So 2 people are going to eat, or 5 people are going to eat. Fantastic. But what about the rest of this crowd? But look what Jesus can do. Look what God can do with a simple offering, a simple willingness to give what we have. So check this out. Here's how the story ends. Jesus said, have the people sit down. There were plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they all had enough to eat, he said to the disciples, gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted. So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. After the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, surely this is the prophet who has come into the world. So make sure you caught this. Make sure you're breaking this down right. Jesus took a lunch of 5 loaves and 2 fish and was able to feed well over 5,000. See that note in there where it says at least 5,000 men were there. Back then, there were a little different views on how women and children were in society. Their roles weren't as important and weren't as equal as we believe today. And so back then, when people were writing this, they only counted the men that were there. And 5,000 men means that there were probably a few more thousand that might have been there. And yet Jesus was able to feed them all with leftovers, all with just a simple lunch. So before we dive any further, I have a question for you all, because I think that there's some different characters in this story. Right? There's obviously Jesus, but there's the crowd who's there hungry and waiting. There's the disciples who are sort of skeptical about this crowd being fed dinner. And then there's the boy who just has this lunch and is willing to give it up and see what happens. So I have a question. Which one do you identify with most in this passage? Is it the disciples? Is it the crowd? Or is it the boy? And if you could share why with us, that'd be awesome. So maybe Kelvin, if you want to kick us off, which one do you identify with the most? The crowd, the disciples, or the boy?
I think sometimes it's a little different for either one, but overall, I'd probably say the crowd. Well, not the crowd. I'd say the disciples because I know that I'm a follower of Jesus. I know that I believe that the Bible is true, but even still, sometimes I still have to go like Jesus, like what's the plan here? Because things are looking. It looks like I'm gonna let a lot of people down. It looks like we may have made a mistake here, and I still go to Jesus and I'm like what's happening? Instead of I have faith that you can do this. I have faith that you can feed these people, and I have faith that you can feed me. And I think sometimes on the boys' side, I would like to be more like the boy, just to be able to, even if I have to go hungry, I'd like to be able to give what it is that I have to Jesus and his people. So,
yeah, that's great. I'm with you on depends on the day. Like some days I feel like I get this more right a little bit than other days. So Marissa, what about you? Who is it that you relate to the most out of the story?
So again, it's just an everyday, I just wake up and I feel like the disciple, or I feel like the crowd, or I feel like the boy. But I feel like the boy really resonates to me this time hearing through the story. Because they were often overlooked and not counted. And I've also felt some of those kind of feelings. But he was still brave and bold enough to say, here, I have these little 5 fishies. I don't have anything shiny, but I trust that guy, and he can do something really, really cool with it. So I feel like that's just kind of how I I don't know, live. I don't really have like lots of cool clothes or lots of like funny words or anything like that. But like the little broken and beautiful things that I do have, I just want to give to the cool guy who can do really cool things with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we're going to actually touch on willingness in just a second, because that's really what you captured right there. It's just a willingness to see what God can do. So Chris, what about you? Who do you relate to the most in the story?
It's just like everybody else, really depending on the time and depending on the day. But again, this the boy is really standing out to me in this story of just his willingness to be sacrificial with what he has. It also speaks volumes to his faith as a boy. I mean, it doesn't really specify the age. It could be anything, and he's just coming, like, it kind of just shows early faith, and he thinks that if he gives this over, it's going to be used for a good purpose. And that's what's really sitting with me right now. And I'm praying that I can be sacrificial in those times for a greater, to just show a greater faith in the God that I serve.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's something that all of you touched on in your answer, and I think it's what the point of this message when it comes to the idea of influence is all about. It's that Jesus wasn't looking for someone to have everything. He was just looking for someone who was willing, someone who brought what they had, and whether it was a lot or a little, to the table to see what he could do. And so I think that the willingness of the boy, to me, is what influence is all about. That God's not looking for someone who has everything. And we know this from looking at Paul's words and other places too, that each of us have different giftings and each of us have different things. But if there's a willingness that we have to bring that to him and see what he can do with it, I think that's what God wants from us. I think that's what the story implies too. And because of that, because it's not about the, if you want to say it's not about the quantity, but the quality even, but it's about willingness to bring. I think this is true for us today. And this is what I want you to hear most today, is that you have more of an effect than you think, because it's not about anything else besides just your willingness to show up and allow God to do what he does. You have more of an effect than you think. You have more influence than you can even dream of, because it's all about your willingness to have it be used by God. So there's 3 quick practical steps that I want to give to you today, and then we're going to hear from these guys one more time. Here's the first thing. I want to encourage you to identify the who. Who is it around you that needs your influence? Or who is it around you that you can influence? Is it in your own home, like Kelvin shared with a sibling? Is it your friends around you? Is it someone in maybe your online classes? Who knows? Who knows right now? But who is it that needs your influence, or you could influence? The second thing is identify the need. Identify the what. What is it that they need? Is it encouragement? Is it more time? Is it more help? Is it more peace? What is it? What is a way that they need influence? And the third thing is to identify what you can do to help and then do it. So knowing the who and the what, and identify, what about you? What can you do about it? And then live it out. Go do it. So guys, real quick, what would be a piece of advice you would have for someone on living one of these 3 things out? What would you say? I don't know, maybe Chris want to kick us off this time.
Just just remembering your audience. Me being a little bit older, but that doesn't really change anything. But my audience, I've got my older sons here in the house. I've got my younger daughters, and I believe my demeanor, the way I carry myself, the way I speak, and my actions are really going to resonate through the other 4. Even when I have personal battles, like what we're going through right now, and you get a little weary, it gets a little scary. But you know what? I, even in my young age, I understand that that's okay, no matter where we are in our faith journey. That is okay. But just remembering your audience, those of you that have brothers and sisters, blended families, depending on who it is at any point in time that could be within your home, the influence you have there, but then also the multiple social media platforms of where it can be taken. You know, you can be the light right now, and you can be a guiding light, or you can follow in a different direction. And I think that each and every one of us, we just have this we have this amazing thing that is being given to us right now, even though we are all socially distancing from one another, but we have this amazing ability to make an impact now that can resonate and have a ripple effect into when we are all able to come back together. And just think of how amazing that could be if we're spreading more peace, love, joy, and things like that, and being there in a way that maybe it wasn't that we didn't notice before, but it really seems like time is kind of slowed down, so we're able to see from a higher view, kind of like what we talk about under the church, the 30,000 foot view, where you see a lot more than what's directly in front of you. And I think that's one of the amazing things that we have here with technology, that we're able to do that, and our influence really will carry.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to use that as sort of like a catalyst for influence.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's great. Marissa, what about you? What advice would you give for someone living this out?
I think I would just really want to yell encouragement over you guys, because this is not a gift that we unlock when we reach a certain point in our faith or turn a certain age, or it's not a gift given to specific people. It's given to all of God's people. And so you are called to and capable of doing this, whether it looks like just doing it for your family, or smiling at the guy at Publix, or helping an elderly woman in your neighborhood. You are called to and capable of showing Jesus to other people and influencing them in that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And encouragement is so needed right now too, I think, in our world. Kelvin, what about you? What advice would you give? Being a high schooler, this is you. How would you say to encourage real quick to live this out?
I would say just don't let yourself get knocked down by fear too often, because that's one of the biggest things as high schoolers. We have this anxiety that people won't accept us, or we're doing it wrong or something. But God says that He has plans to have greater things for you. It may not look like that sometimes, but to have that faith that will knock away that fear,
Sure.
That's one of the most important things about being a follower right now.
Yeah, that's so good. Thanks for sharing. And so to you all listening, remember, you have more of an effect than you think. Now it's about identifying the who, identifying the what, and thinking about what you can do to live it out. Thanks for listening, guys. Chris, Marissa, Kelvin, thank you so much. It's been awesome. See you guys.
I hope you guys enjoyed the service tonight as much as I did. I hope you guys stick around for the rest of the week to see what else we have planned. Tomorrow night we're doing Jackbox games with our middle school group chat. So if you're in middle school, please be there and please check it out. Come hang out with us. On Friday we're doing Marvel trivia. Don't even worry about it. I'm gonna win, but you guys could definitely come check it out if you want to try me. If you guys can't make it for the rest of the stuff this week, please be sure to follow us on Facebook and on Instagram so you get weekly updates on everything that we're doing here at Rev. I miss all of you, and I hope you're all doing well. I will see you guys next week.